الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ونزلنا عليك الكتاب تبيانا لكل شيء وهدى ورحمة وبشرى للمسلمين. صدق الله العظيم. We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified. And we pray for peace and for blessings on all His noble messengers, on our father Adam, and our father Abraham, and on Moses, and on Jesus, and on His mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, and on the last of them all, the Blessed Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Brother Chairman, brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Our topic is entitled Ya'jouj and Ma'jouj, or God and Magog in the Quran. It is an unusual topic. It is, I believe, the first time that it's being addressed in this country. But it is a topic of supreme importance. But more than that, it is a topic which could not have been addressed prior to this time, because it could not have been understood. What the Quran was saying on this subject, and what the Blessed Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, had said on this subject, could not have been understood until events had unfolded in history. We have now reached that point in the historical process where it is possible, through Allah's kindness, to understand the subject. It would not be possible, however, in an hour and a half, and I've already lost 15 minutes of my hour and a half, to complete the subject. What we will attempt to do is to give you sufficient material, information, analysis of the verses of the Quran and of the sayings of the Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, which could give you the framework of the subject, a grasp of the heart of the subject. There is, however, a chapter of this book entitled Gog and Magog in the Quran. And what cannot be conveyed to you in the lecture, you can read it in this book, which is available at the back. The Arabs of Arabia, the tribe of the Quraysh, which traced its ancestry to Ishmael alayhi salam, and which had custodianship over the holy temple, the house of Allah, the Kaaba in Arabia, built by Abraham alayhi salam, on the spot where our father Adam had worshipped. These Arabs did not know how to deal with the phenomenon of one who had emerged from within their midst, who had lived with them for 40 years, who had never told a lie, now he declared, I am a prophet, like unto Ishmael, alayhi salam, like unto Moses, alayhi salam, like unto Jesus, alayhi salam, like unto my father Abraham, alayhi salam. A man named Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. They finally decided, let us send a delegation to the rabbis, the Jews, who are located in the city of Medina to the north of Mecca, in a significant number. Why were the Jews in Arabia, in that city? Now that's a nice story we'd like to tell you sometime. The question was indirect. The target of the question was actually Gog and Magog. They wanted to know whether he knew about Gog and Magog, who were one of the major signs of the last day. In response to that question, which was posed to the Prophet ﷺ, together with the other two questions, revelation came down in the Quran. And the answer was placed in a surah of the Quran, or chapter of the Quran, called Suratul Kahf, or the cave. And that is our topic for next month's lecture. So you've got to come back next month. This is the answer. And they questioned thee, O Muhammad, alayhi salatu wasalam, about Dhul Qarnayn, or the traveler is Dhul Qarnayn. Qarn means a horn. So Qarnayn could mean two horns, shades of Daniel, the dreams of Daniel. Two horns. Qarn can also mean an age, an epoch. And so Qarnayn would be two ages. Which of these two? Which of these two meanings shall we utilize for understanding this name given to this great traveler? Nowhere in the Quran has the word qarn been used to mean horn. Everywhere in the Quran that the word qarn is used, it means an age or an epoch. And so Zulqarnain is a man who impacts upon two ages, one in the past, one to come. That's today. He is someone who possesses faith. Faith in the one God. The one God who created both the male and the female, but is neither male nor female. In the United States, they're saying that God is both a man and a woman now. He has faith in the one God, the God of Abraham, besides whom there is no other God. And that God has given him power. Divinely bestowed power. When power rests on the foundations of faith, how is that power used? I hope that the PNM is listening. I hope that the UNC might one day also listen. When power rests on the foundations of faith, how is that power used? I do hope someday Washington might listen. Zulqarnain travels in one direction. He's going in the direction of the setting of the sun, so west. And there he comes across a people. He reaches a lake of murky water, deep water, so an ocean, not a little pond. And there he comes across a people. And then Allah addresses him and says, "Oh Zulkarnain, how are you going to relate with these people?" He replied, he said, "Those who are guilty of acts of dhulm." Dhulm is wickedness. It's injustice. It's oppression. Like telling a mountain of lies to attack Iraq. Telling a mountain of lies to attack Afghanistan. Destroying the Twin Towers and then putting the blame on Arabs and Muslims. For one day, the truth will come out. And on that day when the truth comes out, we will be vindicated. Arabs and Muslims did not do it. Zulkarnain says, those who are guilty of acts of dhulm, I'll punish them. And when they return to you, you will also punish them. And so when power rests on the foundations of faith, power is used to punish the oppressor. Tell that to any South African and his heart would vibrate. Tell that to Nelson Mandela and he would shake. When power rests on the foundations of faith, power is used to punish the oppressor. And when the oppressor returns to his Lord, the Lord will also punish him. And so when power rests on the foundations of faith, there will be an essential harmony between this world here under and that world beyond. And then he went on to say that those who have faith and whose conduct is righteous, whether you're black or white, and yes, there are white people who have faith and who will live lives of piety and righteousness. Whether you're black or white or brown or yellow, you will be assisted. And we're going to treat you nicely and you'll be rewarded. And so when power rests on the foundations of faith, the religious way of life would be supported. And there would be an essential harmony between life here and life there. Zulkarnain then traveled in the opposite direction, the rising of the sun, and so eastwards. And there he came across a people for whom we had provided no cover. Cover from what? That's a big question. The translation that was just given, cover from the sunshine. People who are not covered from the sunshine will eventually have their skin pigmented, dark-skinned people. Or cover from the elements, so people living a primitive way of life. We don't know which one. How are you going to deal with a primitive people when power rests on the foundations of faith? كَذَلِكَ وَقَدْ أَحَطْنَا بِمَا لَدَيْهِ خُبْرًا. The language in the Quran is so pithy. Thus did Zulkarnain leave them as they were. He had the compassion. He had the good sense and the wisdom. He had the sympathy not to disturb them in their way of life. And then he traveled in a third direction, but the rabbis had not asked for that. But it was understood that that is what they wanted, the third journey. so Allah sent the answer. You wanted to know about Gog and Magog? I'll tell you about Gog and Magog. When he traveled in the third direction, if we had the time, we could argue that it was north. But this book will give you the evidence. It was north. And there between two mountains, it passed between two mountain ranges, and it is later confirmed that this is the Caucasus Mountains. The Caucasus Mountains, you remember? White, Caucasian name. How did they get the word Caucasian? Between the Caucasus Mountains, this passageway, there he came across a people لا يكادون يفقهون قولا, whose language could not be understood. But this is a world traveler. He has an army with him. Surely he would understand the language of a people, except when that people had never interacted with the rest of the world. When that people had never had trade and commerce with the rest of the world. When that people had never walked on the stage of history, like China, like Babylon, like Mexico, like Africa. Not these people. Who are these people? They speak to Zulkarnain after they had been, we were able to understand them. And they said to Zulkarnain, Inna Ya'jooj wa Ma'jooj mufsiduna fil ard. O Zulkarnain, Gog and Magog, these two peoples, they are committing fasad in our territory. Fasad, that which corrupts to the extent that it destroys. Fasad is that which corrupts to the extent that it destroys. Zulkarnain, Gog and Magog are acting in such a way, they are corrupting our society in such a way they're destroying us. Can you help us? Can you build a barrier between us and them? We prepare to pay you. Strange, isn't it? If Allah has given to Zulkarnain power, and it is the power with which he can pursue whichever goal he chooses to pursue. But then why does Zulkarnain not go in and simply destroy these wicked people? Teach them the lesson of their life. Why build a barrier? Zulkarnain should say to them, I don't need to build any barrier, I'll just move in and teach them a lesson. They'll never trouble you anymore. But Zulkarnain agrees to build a barrier. Strangely. He says, I don't need your wealth, what you have to offer me. In the same way that Solomon had said the same thing to Sheba, alayhi salam, Solomon. He said, provide me with manpower, bring me blocks of iron. And then he built the barrier to block this pass between the two mountain ranges. And after he built the barrier with blocks of iron, remember, iron, no bamboo, no recycled paper, iron. He then said, blow with your bellows, making a furnace. And then he said, bring me the molten copper, which he then poured on the barrier, the wall. The engineers tell me that this would prevent rust. Having built the barrier, now Gog and Magog, who are human beings. The blessed Prophet Muhammad said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that Ya'jooj is an ummah of Banu Adam. That Gog is a community who've come from Adam, and so too Magog. Human beings, like you and I, but with a difference. They could neither penetrate the barrier, nor could they scale the barrier. And then Zulkarnain said, and listen to his words, هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. This barrier is a blessing, an act of kindness from my Lord. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي. But when that time comes, of which my Lord has warned, namely, that time when the last age will commence, and when divine punishment will commence, and when the Lord will release into the world the Antichrist, which was our topic for last month. When the Antichrist is going to be released, and Qiyamah commences, the last age commences, and divine punishment begins, then at that time, He, the Lord, will bring down this barrier, in consequence of which Gog and Magog are going to be released into the world. وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّ حَقًّا. And then the warning of my Lord will come to pass. وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ. But they would not all be released at the same time. No. Some of them will take care of the American Indians, and some of them will take the black man out of Africa and put him in chains and take him across the sea, and the bones of the black man will build a bridge underneath the sea, and then take him across the oceans and use him as a slave and never say sorry. Never say sorry. No, they will not all be released at the same time, because at another time more will be released, and they will remove Aristide from Haiti, a black Christian priest who tries to bring justice to the poor of Haiti. But because the black man in Haiti slapped them on their face 200 years ago, he will never be forgiven. We'll punish Haiti. We will punish Haiti pitilessly. And so they're not all released at the same time. Rather, they are released in waves, one after the other. And as they are released in waves, وَتَرَكْنَا بَعْدَهُمْ يَوْمَئِذٍ يَمُوجُ فِي بَعْضٍ وَنُفِخَ فِي الصُّورِ. The trumpet is sounded, but only those who have ears who wish to hear can hear it. فَجَمَعْنَاهُمْ جَمَعًا. And then all the barriers which separated people separated as nations and as tribes for thousands of years, speaking different languages, eating different food, living in different kinds of homes. All these barriers are now swept away, and all of mankind are brought together in one global society. And it would be the global society of Gog and Magog, the only ones who will will resist becoming a part of that global order are those who have faith in their hearts and who follow the messengers of Allah, and in particular the last of them all, the Blessed Prophet Muhammad. Allah's blessings be upon him. What happens when the wall comes down and Gog and Magog are released? Here are a people who have PhDs in wickedness, in corruption, in oppression, in injustice, and who are going to function as the right hand and the left hand of Dajjal. And so they're going to also have a PhD in deception. They tell lies upon lies upon lies. But in addition to this, the Prophet said that Allah said, Hadith al-Qudsi, listen to his words. I have created creatures of mine so powerful that none but I can destroy them. You want to wage jihad against them? They'll beat you. They'll beat the daylights out of you. I have created creatures of mine so powerful that none but I can destroy them. And so when Gog and Magog are released in waves, one after the other, eventually, they take control of the world. With a power which is unique in all of history. An indestructible power. A power which cannot be rivaled by any possible combination of rivals. The African National Congress did not defeat the white man in South Africa. Oh no. The white world order realized that this was an embarrassment, apartheid, with which we could not live if we wanted to pursue our agenda. And so because it was too great an embarrassment, Washington decided that apartheid must go. And when Washington imposed sanctions, then the white regime in South Africa began to crumble. So you cannot, not any combination of rivals, you cannot defeat and destroy that power. When Gog and Magog are released then, power will now rest on foundations which are essentially corrupt. But more than that, the Prophet said that Allah said, it is a Hadith al-Qudsi, that on the last day after we have been resurrected, and then the judgment is to take place, that Allah will say to our father Adam, take out or separate those for the hellfire. It's a strange statement. Strange. You need to digest it. Our father Adam will then ask, how many are they, O Allah, for the hellfire? To which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond. I don't think they'll publish this in the Express. Allah will respond and say, out of every 1,000, take 999 for the hellfire. The companions of the Blessed Prophet were terrified, because in those days they had the fear of Allah in the heart. Today we got a Toyota Camry. They were terrified. Then he smiled. That beautiful smile which can come on the lips when there is innocence in the heart. And he said, good news for you, meaning those who follow me, Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam, meaning those who follow the religion of my father Abraham. That religion. Good news for you. The one for heaven is the one who follows the religion of Abraham alayhi salam. But the 999, meaning the global society, embraced by globalization. And so South Africa shouldn't be so happy about getting the World Cup, because it's part of the march of globalization. Nelson Mandela doesn't understand that. I think Winnie Mandela would understand it. The 999 would all be the people of Gog and Magog. You might have a Hindu name, or you might have a Christian name, or you might have a Jewish name, you might even have a Muslim name. But that is only the external form. The internal substance is you've been embraced by Gog and Magog. And so when Gog and Magog are released, power will rest on foundations which are not only corrupt, but also godless. Are you beginning to understand? Are you? Yeah. Essentially godless. And so power will now be used not to punish the oppressor. No. Power will now be used to oppress. Power will now be used to corrupt. Power will now be used pitilessly to take from the poor the little that they have. And the prophets spoke of it in the Bible. The prophets spoke in the Bible of a time which will come when the little that the poor have will be taken from them. Take a look at Haiti. Take a look at the prisons of Iraq. Everyone else could write on Iraq. And they'd publish in the Guardian and the Express and the Newsday and so on. But when a Muslim wants to write on issues affecting us, they're not going to publish it until we write in conformity with their designs. And so it's time for us to come together and buy newspaper space. And when they refuse to give us newspaper space, we can't buy them, then we go and live in the mountains. Got no sense living here anymore. It's time for us to come together, put our little money together, and go and buy newspaper space, so that we can write, and so that the world can see what we write, unedited by any newspaper. A sister came to me in my class in San Fernando last Thursday with a check for $1,000. She said, yeah, use it to pay for your publications. You have with you in your hands, I believe, a booklet entitled The Islamic Traveler. That can be serialized in the newspaper. It's a thrilling reading, but we can't put it in the newspaper. So we have to print it, we have to publish it. I still have to pay the print fee for that. So you're not going to get it free. You're going to have to pay $15 before you leave, inshallah, so we can pay the print fee. The time has come for us to be able to get our own newspaper space so we can write. Because power, when it rests on foundations which are essentially godless and corrupt, will be used to oppress, not to punish the oppressor. But the Prophet said, Allah's blessings be upon him. that when Gog and Magog are released, the major target will be the Arabs. He said, Wailul lil Arab, woe unto the Arabs. Min sharrin qad iqtaraba, because of a great evil which will now come upon them. He was asleep at the home of his wife, Zainab. And in his sleep he saw something, like you see sometimes when you are asleep. And when he woke up, his face was flushed red. It must have been very, very, very terrible. And then he uttered these words, woe unto the Arabs, because of a great evil which will now come upon them. And then he raised his hands and he made a hole. This is only a symbol. This is not the size of the hole, it's a symbol. He said, today, a hole has been made in that barrier built by Zulkarnain. And so the release of Gog and Magog took place, or rather commenced, that would be the proper word, commenced in the lifetime of Prophet Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And when they are released, it is the Arab who will bear the brunt of the attack. And this is why we have seen the humiliation inflicted upon us after they attacked the Twin Towers in New York on September the 11th, and then put the blame on us. And then they beheaded America. Some men with masks, so you don't know who they are. And they beheaded America. And now the blame, of course, is on us. And then tomorrow, they will have a big act of terrorism in this country. Yes, I can see it coming. And when that major act of terrorism takes place in this country, you should see the newspapers and television and radio gleefully joining in that crusade to pin the blame on Muslims and on Islam. All so they can silence Islam. But it won't work. We know it's coming. When Gog and Magog are released, then power will be used to oppress. But power will also be used, remember, those who have faith and whose conduct is righteous. Zulkarnain rewarded them, treated them nicely. But when Gog and Magog are released, they will use their power to wage war. To wage war on the religious way of life. Ask the Roman Catholic Church. They know. The war on the Roman Catholic Church has been going on for years now. Wage war on the religious way of life. But in particular, to wage war on Islam and on Muslims. Whoever wishes to live a life of piety, of righteousness, of truthfulness, would find that you are now attacked, you are targeted by the godless world. And when power rests on foundations which are essentially godless, that world order will not show respect for people who live the primitive way of life. No. They will be hunted down like cockroaches and exterminated like cockroaches by a people who wield power which cannot be destroyed by anybody, and who will then put on their nice clothes Sunday morning and go to church. Yes, it happened in North America, and we will not allow them to forget it. It is still happening. Go look at the prisons of Canada, and you'll see that the prisons of Canada are filled with native Indians. Filled. Go look at the prisons of North America, of the United States of America. I understood the United States only when I went to work in the prisons of the United States. I had read somewhere in the history books that slavery had ended. And I had seen a statue out there called the Statue of Liberty. And it was saying, come, give me your people who are oppressed, I'll give them liberty. And so I thought, slavery has ended. But when I went into the prisons of the United States of America, I wept. I wept. And I still weep. Because I saw that the prison guards were all white, with a sprinkling of blacks now and then. And I saw that the inmates were mostly black. And not just black, young black men. And I asked myself, did slavery really end? And so those who are the most vulnerable in society, the weakest of all in society, that world order will be pitiless, merciless in its oppression of such people. But the Quran goes on to say something more about Gog and Magog. We now leave Surah Al-Kahf and we go to Surah Al-Anbiya, chapter number 21, entitled The Prophets. The 2 verses. And I was by accident directed to these 2 verses in New York 10 years ago. And as I was reading, it was as though I was struck with a light. I can't explain it. Like a revelation. I can't explain it. An insight. What are the 2 verses? The Quran speaks of Gog and Magog in only 2 places. Only 2, so you can't miss them. One is in Surah Al-Kahf, chapter 18, and that we've given you. The other is in Surah Al-Anbiya. This is what Allah says. He speaks about a town. It was destroyed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The people were expelled from the town. And then the Lord placed a ban on them. They could never return to reclaim this town as their own. Never. They could come back as a tourist, that's okay. But you cannot return to reclaim this town as your own. No. Until when? Until Gog and Magog are released. And after they are released, they spread out in all directions, meaning they take control of the world. And so you now have the world order of Gog and Magog. And then with their power over the world, now you will see these people being brought back to that town to reclaim it as their own. And so Gog and Magog are linked with a town, are linked with a special people. This is something in addition to the Arabs. Gog and Magog like to attack the Arabs, humiliate the Arabs with sexual perversions in the prisons of Iraq by a people who dare to call themselves civilized. And now would say this was just an aberration. Which town is this that is linked to Gog and Magog? This is something absolutely new to a Christian. I think so. If I'm wrong, I wish to be corrected. Because the material which is available to the Christian and the Jew does not have this information. If I'm wrong, I would like to be corrected. Which town is it? destroyed by the Lord. The people expelled. A ban placed on them that they can never return to reclaim that town as their own until Gog and Magog are released. And after they are released, they spread out in all directions. Remember, they're being released in waves, And when they spread out in all directions with their indestructible power, they take control of the world in the world order of Gog and Magog. Then you will see these people being brought back to reclaim that town. This book has dealt with that subject in detail. As I read these two verses of the Quran 10 years ago in New York, like a flash it came to me, an intuitive grasp. Wait a minute. This is Jerusalem. Yeah, this is the Holy Land. This is the Jews. But that was only an intuitive insight. I had to go on now to do my homework. How to prove it? You can't prove an intuitive insight. Yes, it can be proved. It is Jerusalem. How? Let us go into all the statements of the Blessed Prophet on Gog and Magog, called ahadith. So I collected all the ahadith, and almost all. Now let me go through them and see whether there is any town mentioned linked with Gog and Magog, which fits the description given in the Quran. So I went through all of this hadith, and to my amazement, there is only one town mentioned, only one. And it is a town which fits the description. And it is Jerusalem. Yes. But in the hadith, of course, the word Jerusalem does not occur. The Arabic word occurs, Baytul Maqdis, which is Jerusalem. And so I came to the conclusion that the town is Jerusalem. And so the Quran was saying that when you see the Jews being brought back to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, to reclaim it as their own, 2,000 years after the Lord had expelled them out, you must know that this was made possible because of the world order of Gog and Magog. I was amazed by this discovery. I said to myself, I couldn't be the first and the only one. It'd be very lonely to be the only one. And then shortly thereafter, as though the Lord guided me, I came across a booklet. A little booklet. If you come to my class on Thursday at 6:30, San Fernando, Jama Masjid, all of you are welcome to my class on Surah Al-Kahf. I'm going to bring that booklet to the class. Get it photocopied, so you could get a copy. You might have to pay $1, $2 or so to get it. It was a booklet on Gog and Magog, written in 1963 or somewhere around there. And the author of that booklet was a friend of my teacher, Maulana Dr. Fadhur Rahman Ansari. I read the booklet and I found that the most important point of all made in the whole booklet was that the town was Jerusalem. The town was Jerusalem. The rest of the booklet didn't impress me so much, but this was impressive. And then in the preface, the author says that he was grateful to Maulana Dr. Ansari, who guided him and explained the subject to him. And so I came to the conclusion, tell me if I'm wrong. I came to this conclusion, if you think I'm wrong, you can throw me out of the hall. came to the conclusion that if this is the most important point made in this booklet, and if the author acknowledges his depth of gratitude to Dr. Ansari, who guided him and explained the subject to him, I came to the conclusion that Dr. Ansari also must have held a view that the town was Jerusalem. If it is an unreasonable conclusion, take me and throw me out of the hall. And so I was not the first. There were others, but very few. And so now we have reached an amazing point in our lecture. We are able to recognize those who control the world today with their indestructible power. We are able to recognize that their power rests on foundations which are essentially godless. We are able to recognize why they use power to oppress. We are able to recognize why they use power to wage war on the religious way of life. The religious way of life in general, but Islam and Muslims in particular. And we are able to explain that mysterious, mystifying, puzzling, baffling relationship between the white world order and the state of Israel. Now we can understand. If this is the world order of Gog and Magog, and if this is the world order which is bringing about globalization, and if inherent in that globalization process is the destruction of faith, and all of mankind are being embraced in a godless melting pot, what do we do about it? If we have enemies whose power is such that we cannot defeat them and destroy them, what do we do about it? If we know that this is part of the divine plan to send this evil storm through the world, what do we do about it? In the next lecture, which is Suratul Kahf in the modern age, you get the answer. But today we'll attempt to give a brief look at the answer. But before that, how long will this storm last? How long will these oppressors continue with their pitiless, merciless oppression, their corruption? They have corrupted the political process around the world. They have corrupted the economy around the world. They have corrupted the marketplace around the world. They have corrupted money. Money. The thing that you have in your pockets that you use to buy and sell, which today is made of paper. You got some in your pocket? Paper. And we're supposed to recognize that as money. Huh? Yeah. And tomorrow, of course, the paper is going to disappear. Huh? And then a new kind of money is going to come to replace it. Huh? And the new money is going to be invisible. You can't see it. What? Invisible money? And the new money is going to be intangible. You can't touch it. What are you talking about? Money I can't see, money I can't touch. Yeah? And I'm supposed to accept that as money? Nah. Only somebody who has the brains of a jackass will accept money you can't see and money you can't touch. Those who corrupted money by taking away real money and replacing it with artificial money, paper money, and then cause the paper to fall in value. And as the paper falls in value, wages lose their value. And then of course the chief personnel officer, CPO in Port of Spain, have teachers demonstrating in front of CPO office and striking your feet, wages falling in value. Because the paper falling in value. And then when they have completed their process using paper, of corrupting the world through a system of legalized theft. Legalized theft. They can rip off mankind. Then they move to the next stage, which is to enslave mankind with a new financial slavery. And so the paper will disappear. You don't believe me? Just sit there and wait. Darul Uloom, of course, has absolutely no knowledge about that. They are concerned with more important issues. Darul Uloom is concerned with far more important issues. When all the paper disappears, then electronic money takes over. It's already showing its ugly head. And with that electronic money, financial slavery comes to the world. Financial slavery comes to the world. You can't take your money out of an account, bank account. How are you going to take it out? No, there's nothing to take out. Because only electronic impulses and machines in the bank. All that you can do is to transfer your money from one account to another. That's what you can do. They know how much money you have. You can't hide it from them. They know how you're spending your money. They know where you're spending your money. They know where you're getting your money from. Everything they know. They could type in any amount of money they want to type in and make any amount of money they want. Those who control the system. And they could wipe out your bank account if they want. Nobody to stop them. Who controls the banking system in the world? Your worst enemy, says the Quran, the Jew. Not all Jews are your enemies, incidentally. Not all. Those Jews who wage war on you because of your religion. They are your worst enemies in the Quran, says the Quran. And so they corrupt everything. A world in which sexual relationship is absolutely corrupted. And our young people now go on the internet with all the pornography and the videos with all the pornography. Our young people now begin to dress following others until eventually they almost knew. Yeah. And then you have rapes all over the place. And society is collapsing. Everything falling apart. What is it that has hit us? It is Gog and Magog. The world order of Gog and Magog. When will it end? And how should we respond to it? Let us take the first subject. When will it end? There is a link between Dajjal, the Antichrist, and Gog and Magog. And it is not any kind of intellectual arrogance on our part when we say that only the Muslim who has the knowledge of the Quran and the sayings of the Blessed Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, only the Muslim can explain the subject of the Antichrist and his link with Gog and Magog. Dajjal uses Gog and Magog as his right hand and his left hand. The Antichrist is in a dimension where we can't see him. Remember that. When he's in a day like a year, we can't see him. He's in stage 1. When he's in a day which is like a month, we still cannot see him, but he's in stage 2. When he's in a day which is like a week, we still can't see him, but he's now in stage 3. At the end of stage 3, he will now enter into our dimension of time. His day will be like our day. And so we'll be able to see him. Time he will be a Jew, the Antichrist. He'd be a young man. He'd be powerfully built. He would have curly hair. Where would he be? On earth. Jerusalem, the Holy Land. Ruling the world from Jerusalem. From what would appear to be the throne of David alayhi salam. With what would appear to be eternal rule. Then the Antichrist would say, I am the Messiah. And lots of Jews and lots of Christians, I believe, particularly those around George Bush, would accept him as the Messiah. Then of course he can rub his hands and say, mission accomplished. By my calculation, I think we're about 50 years away from that, but of course I can be wrong. But in order for the Antichrist to achieve his objective, he needs to liberate the Holy Land. Number two, he needs to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own. Number three, he needs to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land and get the Jews to believe that this is the holy Israel of David and of Solomon alayhi salam. And number four, he has to get that state of Israel to become the ruling state in the world. The Antichrist uses the world order of Gog and Magog to achieve these objectives. It is as plain as daylight. It is that white world order which has made it possible for the Holy Land to be liberated. 1917, British Army. It is that white world order which has brought the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own. It is that white world order which has caused the state of Israel to be restored in the Holy Land, and it is not an essentially Jewish state. That Israel is a white European state masquerading as Jewish. It is a Euro-Jewish state. The Jews who are our cousins, the Jews who are of Semitic origin, not European origin, those Jews are second-class citizens in Israel. And those Jews are constantly complaining about racial discrimination against them in Israel by the white Jews. And it is that white world order which is now poised, the world order of Gog and Magog, which is now poised to deliver to Israel the rule over the whole world. We have said in previous lectures that there is an uncanny similarity between an act of terrorism which occurred in the summer of 1914 and which paved the way for the First World War, which delivered the liberation of the Holy Land for the Jews. The summer of 1914. An uncanny similarity between that act of terrorism and September the 11th. We say that the same people who planned and executed the attack of the summer of 1914 are the same people who planned and executed the attack of September the 11th. The purpose for the September the 11th attack is to allow events to unfold in such a way that Israel can eventually wage a big war. And when Israel wages a big war, the territory of the state of Israel will expand dramatically. How big? From the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. From the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. Does it sound familiar? Does it sound familiar? From the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates, that's false. Is there in the Bible? Yes, but it's false. The Holy Land does not extend from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates, and the Quran confirms that. The Holy Land is what is today called Palestine. When Israel wages that big war, Israel then sees the Suez Canal. Israel will seize the oil of the Gulf. And Britain and the United States will stand firmly behind Israel, Blair and Bush. At that time, the US dollar collapses. At that time, the US economy collapses. At that time, Israel stakes her claim to be the ruling state in the world. Not appear to be an aggressor. And not appear to be an aggressor. Israel must be able to present to mankind an image of a state which is under siege, a state which is facing a tremendous threat to its existence. And so September 11th was used to attack Afghanistan with a brutality which is inexplicable. A 2,000-pound bomb being dropped upon a people who are defenseless, living in almost primitive conditions, and who had waged war against the Soviet Union for 12 long years, who are some of the poorest people on the face of the earth, and you are the richest, the most wealthy, the most powerful country in the world, and you dropping 2,000-pound bombs upon these defenseless people, indiscriminately killing women, killing children just now. Why? This indiscriminate, reckless, wanton use of force in such a wicked way. There's a purpose. The purpose is to try to wake up the Muslim world. Wake them up so that they'll come out and attempt to use force. And then the attack on Iraq. And after attacking Iraq and getting rid of that blue-eyed boy of the Yankees, they created him, they fed him, they groomed him, they supported him, all through a man named Saddam Hussein. Then they turned against their own blue-eyed boy, used him as the reason and justification to invade Iraq. But if we, the Muslims, had ever attempted to remove Saddam Hussein, they would have destroyed us. No. And now they go in the prisons of Iraq. Is all of this sexual humiliation being inflicted on the Ummah of Muhammad ﷺ by accident? Are these random events taking place by a few rogues? Not at all! This is deliberate policy. We thought that the Muslims would have woken up when we attacked Afghanistan, but they did not. We thought that they would have woken up when we attacked Iraq, and they would have overthrown some of the pro-American regimes like the Jordanian regime, but they did not. The Muslims are really snoring. So we've got to do something more to really get them vexed. That's why the sexual humiliations of the prisons of Iraq. That's why they were parading naked prostitutes before our people in Guantanamo. This booklet in your hand has an appendix at the back, which comes from one of the inmates who was released from Guantanamo. And because he was a British national, he was a black Jamaican, incidentally. A black Jamaican who converted to Islam. He was able to tell the story about Guantanamo. Read that story at the back of this. I don't think the Express will publish it. And you'll see, this is not a random, accidental policy. This is by design. Its purpose is to try to get the Muslim world to wake up, overthrow some of the pro-American regimes, get some Muslims so mad that they will now become terrorists? Can we manufacture some terrorists among these Muslims? Get them so mad, lead them to acts of terrorism? It is when these things occur, when the world can see that yes, there is some danger, some threat from the world of Islam now, that Israel will have what Israel will present as casus belli, some justification for a big war which has already been planned long, long ago. So that is what the White World Order is now doing, helping Israel so that Israel can wage a big war. When Israel wages that big war and becomes the ruling state in the world, then the world order of Gog and Magog will now become a means through which Israel can effectively control the world. But Israel will rule the world for a day which is like a week. A day like a week. Which some mathematician will do the calculation, maybe it amounts to about 30 years or so, 40 years or so. At the end of that time, the masjid would have been destroyed, Masjid al-Aqsa. The temple would have been rebuilt. And then the Antichrist will emerge as the ruler of Israel and the ruler of the world and declare, I am the Messiah. And when it is accepted, he rubs his hands in submission, accomplished. It is at that time that Allah raises a man from the seed of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. And he is known as the Imam al-Mahdi. And with him, Darul Islam is restored, and we have that subject in this series of lectures. Imam al-Mahdi and the return of the Caliphate, that is one of our topics. When Darul Islam is restored in the Arabian Peninsula, that is goodbye. Goodbye to the American Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Back into the garbage bin from where it came out in the first place. But when Darul Islam is restored in the Arabian Peninsula, Imam al-Mahdi, that is the most significant, real and tangible threat to the state of Israel. And so the Antichrist attacks. The Prophet said that the attack would come from the east. He pointed 20 times to the east. East of Medina is not Japan, something closer. He said that the Antichrist will ride on a donkey. Remember the last lecture? The donkey will travel as fast as the clouds. The donkey will have his ears stretched out wide. And so therefore, when the Antichrist attacks, it's going to be fighter aircraft. East of Medina is the Saudi, used to be Saudi, now is the American Air Force Base in Tehran. So it's an aerial attack. The angels guard Makkah and Medina, and the Prophet said that the attack will be diverted to Damascus. And that is where the confrontation takes place between the Antichrist and the Imam. The Antichrist and the Imam. It is at that time that the Son of Mary will come down with his hands resting on the wings of two angels. At that time, when the Son of Mary comes down, then the Son of Mary, the true Messiah, kills the false Messiah. After the false Messiah is killed, then Allah addresses the true Messiah and says to him, go up the mountain, which is a mountain in Jerusalem. The last wave of Gog and Magog are now released. and they surround the true Messiah, the Son of Mary. They shoot their arrows up into the sky. This is symbolic language. Don't ask me to explain it because I can't. But there is a young scholar of Islam who will come, maybe he's a baby now. 30 years from today he'll come and explain it to you, inshallah. They shoot their arrows up into the sky. They say, we've killed those who are on earth. Now let us kill those who are in the heavens above. Gog and Magog. And Allah allows the arrows to come back down with blood on them. Don't ask me to explain this because I cannot explain. Events are going to unfold tomorrow which will help us to understand this. Then the Son of Mary raises his hands and he prays to the Lord to destroy them, Gog and Magog. And then Allah sends a little creature, a little insect, which attacks them at the back of their neck. And all those who are Gog and Magog will all fall down. The rest of mankind, no, only Gog and Magog. They'll all fall down, paralyzed, and by next morning they'll be all dead. I thought maybe it's because of the collapse of the immune system. So the body could not resist an attack. But someone attending my class last Thursday, a medical doctor, she had a brilliant idea. And I've lectured on this subject around the world. Nobody thought about it until this sister, a medical doctor, said it in my class two Thursdays ago. Where was that wall? Caucasus Mountains. So when Gog and Magog are released, we find them out there, Caucasus Mountains. Do we find a people by the Caucasus Mountains who display that kind of power? Yes, we do. Yes, we do. An indestructible power. They are there. Who are they? The Khazar tribes. Khazar. And they are the people who converted, must have been on a Sunday morning, converted and became Jews. One, a white people, European people, who don't even have one drop of Semitic blood in their veins. And they became Jews? Yes, it happened. These Khazar tribes are the people who became European Jews. And they are the ones who were able to block the Muslim army as a wall which was impenetrable, displaying that power. They are the ones who spread out into Europe, Eastern Europe and then Western Europe, corrupted Europe and took control of Europe. And then they went over across the ocean and took control of the United States. And today they control the US Congress and the Senate. They're the ones who created the Zionist movement. I lectured on this subject in a city called Worcester in Massachusetts, close to Boston. And a medical doctor in Worcester pointed out to me that there was a conference on these Jews. They're called the Ashkenazi Jews. And in that medical conference, the evidence came out that these people were genetically unique amongst all of mankind. They were genetically different from all the rest of mankind. The Ashkenazi, the white Jew. And so the sister in my class, a medical doctor, said, it could be because of their genetic constitution, not because of the immune system being collapsed, that they could not survive the attack. When Gog and Magog are all destroyed, then their bodies begin to deteriorate, to decompose, to smell, to rot, meaning it's a bacterial attack, not a viral attack. Then the Son of Mary raises his hand and he prays to Allah to get rid of them. And Allah then sends birds with big necks like black camels, says the hadith. Maybe the eggs are in some mountain top where there's ice and snow. And global warming will cause these eggs to hatch. And so these birds now come and lift these bodies and take them and dump them where Allah ordains that they be dumped. And so that's goodbye to the world order of Gog and Magog. And so now it's a level playing field, a level battlefield. No longer the white world order with its cruise missiles. At this time, said the Prophet ﷺ, when you see the black flags coming out of Khorasan, he said, go and join that army. Even if you have to crawl over ice. Would someone please tell that to the president of Asja for me? Go and join that army. Even if you have to crawl over ice. Because no one will be able to stop that army until it reaches Jerusalem. And when Imran lectures in this country, Imran is lecturing to build that army in the hearts of the young of this country. Let it be known plainly and clearly. I'm not hiding. Go and join our army. Because no one will be able to stop that army until it reaches Jerusalem. I didn't say that. The blessed Prophet said that. Then said he, لَتُقَاتِلُنَّ الْيَهُودِ You will most certainly fight the Jews. Not all Jews. Those Jews who are fighting you. وَلَتَقْتُلُنَّهُمْ You will most certainly kill them. They will be on the run on that day. Today they have helicopter gunships and they're using missiles to kill a paralyzed man on a wheelchair who has just come out of a masjid and a morning prayer. If we had done that, the New York Times would have put us front page, look at these barbarian Muslims. But they could do that. And these hypocrites would tolerate it. Yes, today they're using missiles to kill paralyzed men sitting on a wheelchair who's just come out of the house of God, having prayed. But on that day, it'll be different. And so do not lose heart, and do not give up, and do not despair, because there's a tomorrow which is coming, when victory will come to those who have faith in their heart and who have the patience to bear the evil storm which is going through the world. حَتَّى يَقُولُ الْحَجَرُ At that time even the stones will speak. Ya Muslim, هذا يهودي ورائي, there's a Jew hiding behind me, فَتَعَالَ فَقْتُلْ So come and kill him. And so the Holy Land will be liberated by a Muslim army. The state of Israel, the imposter state of Israel will be destroyed. And the holy Israel of David and of Solomon, alayhimussalam, that holy Israel will be restored. And it will become the ruling state in the world. And the religion of Abraham, which is what we follow. That is the religion which we follow. The religion of our father Abraham. That religion will reign supreme in the world. And the true Messiah will rule the world from Jerusalem with a rule which will be eternal. Brothers and sisters, this has been Gog and Magog in the Quran. Let me remind you, there's a whole chapter of this book which is entitled Gog and Magog in the Quran. And let me remind you one more time about the Islamic Travelogue. We should have one copy for each person here. Please help us by taking a copy and paying for it so that we can pay the printer inshallah. Thank you. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.